From the front lines of heating, cooling, and business, this is the Beer Can Cold Podcast, where the suction line is always beer can cold. Hosted by JG Van Gran and Will Merritt. Crack one open, turn it up, Bigfoot approved. Take it away, boys.
So we are back in the studio today, and today is an amazing show for us. So we're pretty excited to have Patrick and Marty here. Marty is obviously our sponsor, and we do a monthly thing with him. But Patrick, we've had you on once before, and you were so amazing, we thought we'd ask you back.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to be here. Marty's a legend. I get to be on the same podcast with him.
No, he just beat me to the first. All right, I see how you work on that.
So I figured we'd play a little bit of reggae music in today because it is raining and cold in North Carolina, but we're supposed to hit 80 by next week.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about a GM that's struggling and like crazy scared because we haven't moved summer stock onto trucks yet, there is a line of trucks in my parking lot right now getting stuff switched back and forth. So welcome, guys. We are finishing up our podcast where we talked about just building value within your company, right? And Marty, this was 100% your idea to talk about this. And we did the piece on the maintenance agreements, and actually that gained a lot of traction. A lot of questions actually came in from that, how to build that value into your company. And so we thought we'd bring Patrick in with a little bit of a different point of view today, because Patrick, you sell heating and air companies. You know what the value is and how to build value within the company. So I thought we would just kind of start out in saying, what does value actually mean? What is value revenue? Is it EBITDA? Is it transferable cash flow? Patrick, what is value in a heating and air company?
Yeah, great question, and the short answer is yes. Right. So a buyer is going to look at all those things.
Yeah.
Right. Typically, you're going to get paid on a multiple of EBITDA or a multiple of net income, however it's measured, depending on who the buyer is. But all of those things impact that. Right? Gross sales are going to have an impact that. Systems are going to have an impact on that. Maintenance agreements especially are going to have an impact on that. Net income. I think people, unfortunately, talk way too much about multiple. And all you hear, the buzzword in the industry is multiple. Well, if you're not profitable, right? If you're not making any money and I give you some big multiple, it's irrelevant, right? To me, at the end of the day, it's the check you're able to cash from a seller's perspective, and doing all those things right are going to lead to that bigger check instead of talking about multiple. If I'm making $50,000 a year and I sell for a 10-time multiple, that's not fantastic, right? At the end of the day, that's not a great measuring stick, and I think too often we focus on that, but all the things you mentioned are important in where that multiple lies and what a buyer's willing to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify a little bit, I don't think I mentioned before we went live, the word EBITDA, right? And that's something we don't use in our industry enough. Other industries run on EBITDA. EBITDA is earnings before income, taxes, deferments, and accrual. Am I correct?
Depreciation and
depreciation. Sorry, I almost had it right.
Yeah. Yeah. But and go ahead. I'm sorry to talk over you, JG.
No. It's the value of your company before some of the bills are paid, right? Before the taxes, before those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And when private equity made the push into the trades, that's when it really became the buzzword, right? That's what everybody starts talking about, is because that's where most private equity are going to use to value your business. In theory, it should be a pretty standard number, but often it's not, right? And so people will add up what they believe is their EBITDA. Someone will make them an offer of a multiple of that figure, bring in 20 Harvard CPAs and said, hey, you were wrong in your calculation of EBITDA, but we're still going to give you the same multiple, but now the figure's $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 less, and now you're multiplying that. So I'm not a great fan of EBITDA for that reason, because it shouldn't move, but it does. And so we use seller discretionary earnings in our business, and it's basically EBITDA plus owner's compensation.
Got it.
So if you own the business and you're running it, as an owner, you make what the company makes plus what you pay yourself, and we use that figure, and then allow people to make adjustments. But you're absolutely correct. They should know what that figure is, because it at some level it's a barometer of where the profitability of the business is.
That's right. Now, Marty. Hi there, Beer Can Cold Nation. Today's episode is brought to you by Praxis. Everybody talks about the goal: more profit, more growth, more wins. But here's the reality. As average ticket prices climb, it's becoming more important than ever to stay organized and run real systems inside your business. Because the truth is this: the process is just as important as the goal. That's why we partnered with Praxis Software, built around one simple idea: the winning process made simple. From the owner all the way to the newest employee in your team, every business needs proven processes to build a winning culture. Praxis HVAC sales and pricing tool creates consistent pricing, improved product knowledge, and develop team members into confident professionals. And when your people are confident and your pricing is consistent, your business runs better, period. If you're ready to stop guessing and start running a real operation, call Marty and the guys at Praxis today at 678-680-5926. Again, that's 678-680-5926, or visit them at praxisgroupinc.com. You can also find the direct link in the show notes. Praxis Software, because the process is just as important as the goal. That's right. Now, Marty, if I want to, and we've talked about this a little bit, I decide to build value in my company and I'm on the fence of selling it or keeping it, right? And there's this word recurring revenue, right? And you're the master of recurring revenue, I feel like. So you want to touch a little bit on how you build value within your company with that recurring revenue?
Yeah. And again, it's the three top things: maintenance agreements, and maintenance agreements.
Three words of advice.
Sir?
3 words of advice.
That's it. And it's like anything else, is once you learn it, you repeat it, right? And now it's going into that. That's an intentional, and you kind of pass that and pay that forward in there. And when I didn't always have that, right? I had the long hours. I had working late at night and being strapped to that business. But the two things that a value in there, the number one that gives us the greatest reoccurring is, for me as a small business, is definitely maintenance agreements. And it starts the whole waterfall for everything else in retail. The two things that happened to get into that was understanding and knowing your pricing and sales of your goods and services, right? And that, those two fell hand in hand. And when you start understanding, what those are, now you start understanding where Patrick is. And, it's like I'm a disciple of what he's doing now. And although I don't have an interest in selling my business, because I found out several years ago that it's a very profitable business. It's a good money-making business. And I'm having a lot of fun in it right now. So with that, and going into the reoccurring side of that is the maintenance plans springboards our branding. It springboards our marketing. And once in the retail side of that it is from a service standpoint, on a very high margin service work to retail sales. So everything else, when you start looking at that, is it's our business, right? We sell boxes, right? It's the service side that I think is the biggest for me.
No, I agree. And I think that, regardless of what you want to do, like every day when I walk through the door, I feel responsible for the 85 employees that's there that needs a paycheck. And I think that reoccurring piece is very important. And so, Marty, you actually inspired me to get the brothers to re-look at our maintenance agreements because we weren't selling them. The techs weren't buying in. And so we kind of reevaluated things. Mm-hmm. We supersized one of our plans, made it cheaper, made it easier to sell, and all of a sudden we're selling 120 a month. And wow. That has been really, really good for us and very exciting, right? And yes, we are we have a higher tier plan, and some of those people that now want to cancel out, we're grabbing them and say, hey, there is another option. You're going to lose maybe, this one feature, but the rest of this we can still take care of you. And so the capturing the people that would have fallen over the sides of the bucket those numbers are even up. So I definitely think that the reoccurring piece is good. And Patrick, I would think that if you were to look and evaluate a company, looking at a strong maintenance agreement base that's probably a big part of the sale, isn't it?
Huge part. If you look at any of my listings I've got online, if they've got a decent amount of maintenance program, it's the first sentence in my ad, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what maintenance agreements do for a business, from a broker's perspective, one of the first questions we ask is how many maintenance agreements you have in place, right? The customer's paying for their own loyalty. You're minimizing marketing spend. You're helping you during the shoulder season. Then the list goes on and on and on. And buyers love maintenance agreements. At the end of the day, buyers absolutely love maintenance agreements, and it's one of the biggest driving factors. If you look at any of our listings, and if there's 1,000 maintenance agreements and look at a company with 200 maintenance agreements, you could look at their P&L and see it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, take away everything else in the business. You could look at a P&L of a business we have listed, or a tax return of a business we have listed, and one that has high maintenance agreements and one that doesn't. It's a night and day difference.
And then Marty, we talked about this, Patrick, you too, like the monthly payment versus the upfront. What do you like to see more? The monthly payments on maintenance agreements where, it's $12 a month, or does it look stronger on the P&L? For us, I see that these monthly payments makes for a stronger P&L because there's more cash flow.
So from a seller's perspective, taking two different sides, right? From a seller's perspective, a seller prefers monthly because typically in a sale of a business, if you do one time a year, let's use that as an example, and you do 2 or 3 services, whatever you end up doing for that maintenance, and you've been paid and the maintenance hasn't been done, when you sell your business, you've got to give a buyer a credit for that amount. So if you charge $200 a year and they get 2 visits and you've done one, you've got to give a buyer a $100 credit because they've got to go now do the service that you've sold and paid for. So from a seller's perspective, if it's monthly, typically it's a wash, right? You're somewhere in that cycle, depending on when they pay and when they get serviced. And most buyers just consider it a wash. So from a seller's perspective, it's better to have them that way. I'm not an expert on maintenances, so I won't claim to be, but my experience has been from a buyer's perspective, they like them continuing paying because it's just like, my Netflix bill that I pay every single month, and I never watch a Netflix movie, is because they cancel it less. It's a small enough type thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And they just keep it going. So I don't know the reality of that, but to me, I've heard that. And from my own perspective, when I look at the $12 things that are coming out of my account every single month, I'm not canceling it, where sometimes if you have to get them to re-sign and repay, it can create headaches.
Yeah, there's no expiration, Patrick and Marty. It never ends. You just keep going, and that is a problem in the business when it comes to the renewal visit of getting payment and the check. Yeah, I like writing the check once a year, but a lot of businesses have gone to the monthly just because, like I said, it never stops. So, but can I ask one question back, Marty? This is from a contractor's point of view. So I'm a contractor, and we're all preaching maintenance. So I'm a small, fairly new contractor. How do I get to where I need to get maintenance wise? Let's say I'm under $1 million in revenue, and I mean, because we preach that to our customers constantly. We ask the question. This is a great one. It's like, can you keep your team busy during the shoulder seasons? And if not, that's a sign we see, like, oh, they don't have enough maintenance customers, and they're going to be expecting marketing is going to do everything for them when there's no demand out there, which we can't force people to do something they don't want to do, especially in this business. So, again, I'm a 4 or 5 man, 6 man operation, or employee. I shouldn't say that. That's not politically correct these days, but, what do we do? How do we get to, the 500 maintenance agreements per tech type of thing? How do we get to this? Or, other than just every call you go on, I know you try to bring them onto it as a maintenance customer, but.
Yeah. And, that's kind of a loaded question, because when you get in and you start from scratch with nothing in there, that's kind of hard, because, I mean, the first thing you do at the very minimum is convert every customer into a lifelong customer,
Yeah.
right? And so that's a lot easier said. I mean, it really sounds simple, but you're trying to get people to buy into $189 for a year, right? And where, I'm not saying it's a lost leader, it's a very valuable leader, but it does, if you're not completing the full maintenance for the first win to the customer, then it's a loss. So in that aspect, somebody new coming into this has really got to go through that you know, do I really commit to this?
Yeah.
Am I really going to commit to
Yep.
a maintenance program? And I'll tell you, with our Praxis folks and with I mean, that's a constant discussion, because I look at it this way. There's a lot of people that are interested and not committed. And I kind of refer that to day one or one day. Today's the day I'm going to commit to this program. And I am going to know that everything I do, everything I speak about, everything I do my meetings about are going to be based around $189. It's got to be that commitment, and it's got to come from the top, right?
Yeah.
You don't pass that down, because at the top, they've got to be able, and that's got to be your culture. And and it took a while, right? It took me losing 3 times, or 2 times. I didn't lose the third time, but the first 2 times going in there, it's like you're doing maintenance because everybody else is doing maintenance, and you're doing it on that false pretense in there. Although it looks like I'm doing it to keep my guys busy. Well, that's not a good business plan. I did that for years,
No.
right? Is you're doing it to add value to your customer, right? And while you're in there in their customer, instead of just rubbing down the unit and spraying it down and checking whatever your book face and all that stuff looks like in there, is actually have a conversation. And so it's kind of, it's a culture,
Yeah.
right? And you gotta commit to it. And it's a big heap to go over. And guys, and Patrick may be able to sound off, guys hear that you have to have that when you sell, but it goes in here and bounces off and runs out. And then when they get there and say, well, I got a handful of them, but you really don't know what they mean. You don't really know what the value is. And I will say this, at some point in time, when you figure out what the value of that is annually per customer, and you start looking at that number annually, one of you just said you can see it on your P&L statement. You absolutely see it on your you can absolutely set your year on what that looks like. So once you get in, if you're going to start doing that, commit. You got to commit. And you got to surround yourself with good people, right? And people are, I mean, that either know how to do that, know what the outcome is, and then why you're doing it. And then it's got to be that 3 wins, right? The first win's got to be the customer in your maintenance plan. You're not doing it to keep them busy. You're doing that to gain more customer, put value into what you do. And what you do is you provide an impeccable service. And you do it when you're doing it there's no problem asking for another one, or asking for a referral, or asking for a review. It's like, and we pay for these things. We pay by clicks. You know what you is, and the one that can do the best for you is right in front of you.
Yep.
So as easy as it sounds, it's a journey. But once you get into there and you see it, you'll see, even getting into the end where you get to see Patrick, what the value is.
Yeah. So they just got to buy in early on, and from
Big time.
day one, if they're not, because I've seen so many businesses over the years, they, like you said, they're doing it, but they're not bought in. And it's kind of like a necessary evil. You
know
got
what?
to believe in it.
Sorry. You know what? It's the allure of the big ticket, right? It's the small ticket invites you to the big ticket if you're willing to work the process.
Right.
It'll be there, right? But it's the allure of losing that process and trying to jump to the biggest ticket and panic. So
We always say it's either it's a farming process or it's a dating process.
right.
You got to take it one step at a time if you want the ultimate goal. And some of you want to jump to the big ticket. I want the $20,000 change out. Well, you got to date for a little bit before you get there.
Exactly.
And get to know each other more.
Right.
And as you guys are talking about the culture piece of this, I think that one thing that a lot of people don't think about when you're building value in your company is leadership depth and owner dependence, right? So what I mean by that is if I am looking to build a business to sell, and Patrick, please jump in because I might be really screwing this up, but if I don't have proper leadership in there and have the leadership trained in such a way that I, as the owner, can disappear for 60 days and everything still runs smooth, then if the business is really dependent on me to be there, that's a value situation, isn't it?
Absolutely. Right. You don't have a business, you have a high paying job. Right. And the reality is there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're okay when you cash the check at the end. You're going to be penalized for it, right? If every Google review has the owner's name on it and they're the best salesman and they're the best tech and they're the best bookkeeper and nobody, I can assure you, nobody, I've been fortunate, I've sold 160 heating and air companies.
Wow.
There's never been a buyer that called me and said, hey, I want to work in the field for 12 hours and then go home and do paperwork for 6 hours. Never happened, right? At the end of the day, nobody wants to work that hard. And so if you're doing it all and the business needs you for everything, the check at the end is going to be reflective of that. And once again, I'm not saying everybody needs to grow to $10 million and cash these huge checks, but just don't be surprised when you get there. If you leave, and when you leave, the best salesman leaves, the best tech leaves, the best bookkeeper leaves, the best this leaves, they're going to have to replace you, right? Yeah. So they're going to have to pay somebody to do those things. And as a result, that EBITDA we talked about earlier, the net income of the business is going to come down.
Right. And so in that same vein, then, when you look at a company and a value of a company, if a company is doing things like running on the EOS process, right, the entrepreneur's operating system, or they have actually a manual that can hand you with all their SOPs, this is how everything is done in our company. They run off a KPI dashboard daily. There's discipline in the processes they're doing. I would think that that's a much more valuable transaction than just walking in a chaos and not even knowing if they have a P&L that's up to date.
100%, right? Because if one person's missing from that equation, the business still operates. If everything relies on you and you're gone, the business shuts down. And so a buyer's willing to pay for that, right? There's a lot of professional buyers in the marketplace today that don't know how to fix an air conditioner. Well, if they need you to fix the air conditioner, to sell the air conditioner, to do all these things, then it eliminates all those buyers from the equation. And now the less buyers that are interested in the business, the less value that it has.
Yeah. Well, can we can I touch back on that too, Patrick? We talked about private equity and how, I watched it. I remember way back in the days in the 90s when the ARS stuff was happening and Service Experts got bought by Linux and all that happened. But what we saw during COVID was crazy multiples paying for these businesses. So, I try to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on a lot in this industry. And kind of what I'm hearing, it's that piece seems to be diminishing a little bit and they might be struggling. Some may have overpaid a little during COVID. I mean, I don't know what you're seeing, but from a true business person that wants to buy it as an investment, and it could be in private equity, or it could be privately funded, or so. I'm just curious.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think this is a people business, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Biased opinion. And many of the buyers that bought companies believe you can run it from a spreadsheet, right? And at the end of the day, you've got to manage people and relationships and vendors and staff and all these things. And I think a lot of people overpaid for a lot of companies during the peak, right? You had this COVID bump, right? Everybody was at home, everybody's getting new air conditioners. And so numbers went up, multiples went up, and they were buying them and they don't know how to operate a company, right? And I think in the market we're in, once again, my biased opinion, you better be able to fix an air conditioner, right? At the end of the day, everybody's not buying a brand new one right now. And so you better be able to fix them and you better be able to maintain staff, right? You better be able to do those things. And so I think some integration took place. I sell a lot of smaller companies. We sell a lot of companies doing 2 million to say 6 million in sales. Those companies didn't spike, right, from a valuation standpoint, like a company doing $10 million plus did. And so they've still held their value. And there's a lot of buyers that have entered the marketplace that see a lot of value in those smaller businesses because their customers all don't have brand new equipment, right? They've been repairing things, and there's still opportunities, and there's still relationships, and there's still things in place. So these have stayed, but absolutely right. At that upper end of the market, we have seen values come down where before, say, just after COVID, especially if I had a company doing $10 million or more in sales, I'd call it 5 or 6 buyers. It would turn into their own bidding war, and they'd overpay for it and somebody would buy it. Now, when I get a company doing $10 million plus, I'm calling those same people and they're saying, okay, how many maintenance agreements do they have in place? What percentage of their business came from changeouts last year? What's their marketing spend, right? They're asking questions that 3 years ago they weren't asking.
They were in buy mode. It was all, hot and sexy and let's
Absolutely.
do it. But I back to the thing, we move on. But the COVID, we talk a lot about this. I think it's this post-COVID bubble that we're seeing. JG, you and I talk about it, Marty. A lot of systems got replaced probably a little earlier than they should have. And so you got a lot of new furnaces out there that didn't break this winter. Yeah, we had a pretty cold winter in Carolinas.
Yeah.
But I think that's a real world thing.
No, I agree.
That was the FUD factor, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? If you're, I'm not going to get stuck in the house and be having to be trapped in here, right? And it wasn't selling; it was providing.
It was order taking.
Yeah, and so it's yeah, you're right, and it's interesting to hear because Patrick and I were talking right in the beginning of COVID, and we were doing podcasts on this and what he's been speaking of for years, and I just, if you don't mind, I just want to tail off of what you just said, Will, it's probably one of the reasons I didn't jump on that side, because it sure did look appetizing, right? And then you start thinking on one side of my mouth, you're saying this is a people business, this is a relationship business. And yet, you still got people and you still got customers. And that was going kind of crazy at the time. And then, you start looking at things that, hearing from Wall Street, that people aren't going to own anything anymore. It's going to be owned by big, and you're just going to be working for them. Well, that kind of stuck with me. And I've had conversations with Patrick, and probably the best thing that I could tell you that comes out of this, on one side, God bless everybody that sold. God bless them. They deserve it. I mean, it's been nice to everybody here and then, but as we're builders now in it, is the things that Patrick preaches and the things that he writes about are the things that if everybody could get out of this, doing it for your company now, right? Not just what are you going to get when you sell it, because you're going to get a big bonus while you're building it, right? But to listen to what this is now, if I would have done this years ago and thinking about, man, I'd be somebody, right? Is now when you start looking at that and start paying attention to EBITDAs, to start paying attention to quality pricing and understanding your business and what he brings to the table, it just should nurture a whole lot of new companies, a lot of new, and the smaller companies, not to be afraid of it, right? It's like, look, if you're an ocean, be an ocean. Don't be a pond just because people can't swim. And so now when you start looking at the values, we're starting to get more value in our companies. And what I don't think we missed anything. And maybe Patrick, you might be able to tell me, we may not have gotten on the first intro where people were going crazy with it. But at some point in time is the build, and you're making the money that you should be making, not working the hours you should be working, and actually doing what he just said. And then all of a sudden being able to write a modest check or a good check at the end, to me, that's that win-win.
Yeah. And here's the reality. Running a profitable business with systems and people in place is a lot more enjoyable, right? At the end of the day, if you're not having to do every single thing, having a business that everybody wants to buy and you don't have to sell demands the most value, right? At the end of the day, when they're coming to you to buy it because it's so profitable and you're not working 20 hours a day doing it all yourself and you don't have to sell it, that's the dream spot for everyone to be in my opinion. And it's a lot more fun, right? At the end of the day, it's a lot more enjoyable. It's not the daily grind that so many people struggle with because they won't get out of their own way.
Yep.
And I firmly believe the market's going to go up and down,
Yep.
but a well-run, high-quality business is always going to have value.
Sure.
Right? And so if you miss the first wave or whatever it happened to be, well, there was a first wave in the 80s and a first wave in the 90s.
Right.
And I think it's all relative. And I tell a lot of people, I had a call today telling them you'd be foolish to sell. If you sell and you cash that check, what are you going to invest in that's going to generate the revenue that a well-run heating and air company is going to generate? Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not something that it's not going to be real estate. It's not going to be all these other things. And if you're not having to work, once again, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's a cash cow at that point.
Yeah, you just start to back it up. You got your systems and your people in place, and then you can start to enjoy life a little bit more and reap the rewards of all your hard work. You know, because you see so many. Just being in the business 30 years, you see so many of the guys, great people, and they just work themselves to death practically. Yeah,
great technicians, but not great business.
Yeah,
I think that's the issue.
Yeah, but I wanted to touch on one thing. It made me think about one of your e-blasts or one of your videos you did, Patrick, talking about, all right, say I'm a business owner and I'm getting, all right, I think I'm ready to get out. So maybe I got another 2 or 3 years, 4 years, something like that. So, you know, a lot of small business owners try to make their business look as least profitable as possible for tax purposes. So and this really caught my attention. And it said, you know, hey, it's great that you're not paying any taxes, but your EBITDA is way low. And they come in to buy, and it's like, well, it's great you didn't pay the tax man, but you just lost a ton of money. So talk a little bit about that. I think that's a really good, valid point for someone thinking, you know, hey, it's coming.
I have that conversation every day. I had it today. We're going through reviewing somebody's numbers, and they're like, wink, wink. I also make another $50,000 or $100,000 that I don't show. And I have to tell them, well, the only profit you made off that is what you saved in taxes. And the math is never in your favor. If we can sell your business for a 4 or 5 or a 6 time, we're talking about this multiple now, 4 or 5 or 6 time, and you've been hiding, reclassifying, whatever you want to be, that profit of $100,000, you've saved $30,000 in taxes if you're in the highest tax bracket, $37,000 you saved. If we're able to sell it for 5 times, it just cost you $500,000. So you're taking a $37,000 savings to give up $500,000. It never works out in your favor.
Right.
And
good way to look at
it. It's just math, right? At the end of the day, everybody is we got to save taxes. Well, if the goal is to sell it sometime, you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. I mean, it never works out in your favor. And assuming you're in the top tax bracket and assuming all these other things, the numbers, we spend so much time doing it. And then probably half the buyers in the marketplace right now are using financing of some sort, SBA financing, something like that. Everybody thinks it's only private equity that's buying. Well, I think we did 25 deals last year, and probably only half of them were consolidators. The other half we sold are mom and pops buying other mom and pops, kids buying their parents out, kids expanding the parents' business. So there's a lot of buyers in the marketplace. Well, if you're cheating your taxes, let's call it what it is. If you're lying to the federal government, not showing and paying that taxes, well, that buyer now can't walk into the federal government and ask for a loan and say, oh, the company I'm buying's actually been cheating and is making an extra $100,000 more. So you just lost every buyer that was planning on using financing because now they can't get it financed. They can't come in and tell on you in order to get a loan. So now you have to sell to private equity or a cash buyer. So you eliminate those people. So it's just never the right solution, in my opinion.
You mind can I add something to that real quick, if you don't mind? Because this cost me a lot of money these last 2 years. And I love Patrick. He is right side by side, and I listened and I watched everything he's done, and he is 100% right. And when I read that a while back, and I just got done leaving accountant, I brought that to my accountant, because accountants lead you down a path that is historically what you try to do to defend yourself from overpaying, right? And as a business owner, you're already paying a plethora of taxes before you even get to the part of what you're going to pay extra when you get on there. So the taste in your mouth to all my peers, and it's a bad taste when you walk in there. And then to buy in and bite the apple that he just got on talking about, I struggled with that for a while until that minimal sentence that he just said, and just threw that math problem in there. Don't do it if you never want to sell it. Just do what you're doing and walk away, and you'll be okay, I would assume, right, Patrick? That's what you chose. But if you're educated and you choose that, well, that's of your choice. But now there would be no reason, if you're going to put all this time in, not to look at the exit and prepare yourself like that now. And that took a big, I mean, when you talk about committing, that's a commitment, right? Because you're going to go stroke a check, and a large one, to be able to future benefit.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
So guys, to kind of bring this, the last topic I think I want to throw in here, building value, which I know, Marty, I'm going to ask you first. And I think you're like me. When you start talking about this topic, you're going to get pretty passionate. So I'm going to ask you the question this way. How did you build the culture in your business?
How did I build it?
Yep.
Well, you know what? The culture is exactly how you want everybody to be able to act, speak, and talk. And it's around customer service. I'm impeccable. I'm insane on customer service. And one of the things was once I started building values that I knew that were the right values. And I say that is I've just been blessed and raised right to begin with. Secondly is how do you treat people? And once I started doing that, you started coaching it. And people can tell, right? If you're coaching something that means something and is passionate, they'll listen, but more importantly, they'll repeat it. And once I started figuring out, after I got through the mistakes of going in there and doing what others were doing before me, and started going back in and putting it together in there, I've been able to really go back in now and start putting out who we are, what we are. And when we meet it and we talk about it, we talk about the same thing all the time. And lo and behold, it's like we get it in writing and we get it in words. That when they meet one technician and they meet the next one, everybody's speaking the same, everybody's talking the same. So there's no miscommunication on pricing. There's no miscommunication on what we're providing. And everybody is speaking and saying the same thing because they're confident and been empowered. So I would probably say the culture with the turning point for me was empowering them with the information and the knowledge to be able to do it on their own.
So Patrick, now Marty comes to you and say, I want to sell my company. He can't quantify culture for you, but it's such a big part of his value. How do you quantify? How do you sell that culture to a new owner or to somebody that you're trying to sell it to?
Well, you can kind of quantify it, right? Look at his Google reviews.
Okay.
Look at the customer satisfaction. Look at the customer retention. Look at the employee retention. Look at it looks like when you walk up and you see the vans or trucks are cleaned.
Yeah.
And the people are dressed and professional. Look, so to me, it does show. I mean, it doesn't show dollars and cents, right? But it shows of the overall image of the company. And I think, not to take away from Will's business, but being in the marketing side, I can't outspend or Marty can't outspend these major players in the marketplace, right? He just can't advertise enough. And he's in a super competitive market, right? That's private equity owns 90% of the companies there. He can't outspend them. But when a customer looks at the Google review, or a customer sees one of his guys in the store, or a customer has him come to the house, all of those things all translate into that. So when he does spend the money on marketing and the advertising and the promotion and the little league games that he supports and the youth football and all those other things, all tailor into that, to me, it all compounds. So I think you can't put a definitive price tag on it, but it certainly translates to the bottom line of the business.
That's awesome. That's a great answer. All right, last one. I want to increase my company's value 30% in 3 years. Marty, how do I do it? Maintenance.
Maintenance agreements.
Patrick, how do I do it?
Same thing.
Same
I
thing.
mean, I think because if there's 4 things that I preach consistently over and over and over, and everybody's read my articles or seen me speak anywhere, it's get yourself out of the van.
Mm-hmm.
It's get clean books and records. It's focus on service and repair, and it's stay away from new construction. And if you focus on maintenance, you have to get out of the van because you need more people to do the work. You have to have clean books and records because you have to understand what you're charging in order to charge what you need to charge. You have a business that's built on service and repair because you're doing maintenance agreements, and you're staying away from new construction because that doesn't have anything to do with maintenance agreements. So those 4 things all tie directly into maintenance at the end of the day.
That is awesome.
That might be the crescendo there. Got everything in one statement. I like it.
Man, he didn't even take a breath.
We'll make a TikTok out of that one, I promise.
Well, guys, drop a beat on that one.
I've said it for years and years, and it's the same thing over and people are sick of me saying it. But if you do it, it answers all your problems.
Some people still don't buy into that process, and like just a quick thing from the marketing side is we don't like looking at like the cost per lead metric. We want to look at lifetime value of the customer. What doesn't matter what if it costs to get me in for $300, but then I'm a customer for the next 20 years and I bought, I buy 2 systems from you and I'm worth $50,000 type of thing, And
I think it's a difference of being a box changer, right? I think unfortunately the flashy thing is for somebody to get up on stage and say everybody needs a new piece of equipment instead of taking care of people, and you become the person they call. Right. Yeah. I'll make a lot of enemies in that last statement. Don't put that one on the TikTok.
I get it. The companies have to make money, and there's a lot of times when it may be a fairly new system, and really they could benefit from going up. I was talking to in Texas, a TM in Texas this afternoon, and he used to be a comfort advisor, and he's like, I sold people all the time, on high end variable speed, variable capacity units, and their systems were, they could have been repaired, but I sold them on why it's going to make their life better.
Yeah.
Better solution, right?
Yeah. So let the consumer make the choice,
Absolutely.
Give them the options. Put the options in front of them.
Choice.
And I was a comfort consultant for many years, and that was the thing that made me successful is, listen, you can repair it or you can replace it. Here's your options. What would you like to do? And that's the best way to do it.
Well, if they were a maintenance customer, they probably have a relationship with your company and seen the good job that you've done for years and years and years, and it's an easy decision for them to make.
Yeah, and it may be service, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right? Okay, let's fix it. Right? And if you commit to that, it's one of those things like and getting back to what you were just asking a little while ago, Will, if you commit to getting everybody converted from an acquaintance to a lifelong customer, and everybody fits annually what they're going to purchase, and the different people are in line to be purchasing different things, right? From IAQ to parts to services to air duct cleaning, all of those things that you have that you can provide that service for. Look, there's a fair margin in that, right? And then when it comes time, I don't want to be kind of soft on saying this, but you're really not selling, right? JG, when you go back in there, you provide an option. They provide the answer.
Yeah, they're ready to buy.
Yeah. And so when it comes into that, it's like, just take impeccable care of them.
Yeah.
They'll never leave you. And when the time comes, everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's good. Guys, I say this every time, Will. It's like we keep getting better at these
things. This is a good one. Thanks,
this was a really good one.
We're all passionate about this stuff.
Yes, we are. And I'm very excited. And I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. So Will and myself have a very fun week ahead of us. We don't get to do this often, but he's coming over to the Garage Pub tomorrow night. We're gonna strategize, and then we're at the ACR event all of Wednesday at the Raleigh Showground. So if anybody is listening to this, it's in the Raleigh area, we're going to have a table out there. We're going to have several people we're interviewing at the ACR event. ACR Supply Company is a company that started here in Durham, family-owned supplier, and they're truly great people. And so they are putting on an expo on Wednesday at the Coliseum, and so we have a table there, and we're gonna interview some of their leadership, and then hopefully any vendor or anybody that we can put on a microphone, we're gonna do so. So it's gonna be a fun time. So that's what we're looking forward to, and so that's gonna be our week here, and then we will start releasing those throughout too. And we promise we're not gonna stay away and not record, because we have probably 6 hours worth of recording from the show, but we'll try to do some extra stuff. So pretty excited about that.
Yep.
So guys, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it. These are the kinds of things that we want to really do with this podcast more and more, show value, so that we can help our, we've talked about this all the time. 63% of this industry is that $1 to $5 million contractor. And it's like helping those guys understand the value of doing things within processes. I'm blessed to run a larger company, but those processes, I can see smaller companies really, if they would do them, and do these things we talk about, the maintenance agreements and so forth, it just builds value. And it builds value if you want to keep it or if you want to get rid of it. It doesn't matter. It builds the value.
Absolutely.
So
Good times.
Thanks again, guys, and we will have you guys on here pretty soon again.
Thank you so much for the
See you guys. Take
All
care.
right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Face up to profit, you can hold. We're singing cash flow, rock and roll. Big and cold. Turn it up in the warehouse. Let the numbers hit your spine. You're not stuck in a slow down. You're one decision from a different life. Big and cold. But the business running high, let's go. Hey, turn that wrench into a weapon in the gold. We're turning vans into value on the road. Big and cold. JG wheel in your earbuds, take control. From the crawl space up to profit, you can hold. We're singing cash flow, rock and roll. Big and cold.